cr101radio.com, podcasts, and more.
22. How to be a failure. Part 6. Demand perfection. October the 13th, 1953. Good morning, friends. Last week, we were dealing with the most popular love affair of our time, man's love of himself, and we saw that one of the quickest ways to failure and frustration is to be in love with yourself. The man who is in love with himself believes that he is the most important thing in the world, or else should be. He expects the whole universe to revolve around himself and is perpetually frustrated because the world goes its own way without paying any attention to him. The Christian, on the other hand, realizes that far from being the center of the universe, he is a sinner and a very small potato and cannot be the center of even his own limited activity. His love must be given to God instead, and loving the Lord with all his heart, soul, strength and mind, and his neighbor as himself, he finds joy and peace in service to the true center of all things, God himself. This morning, let's look at another easy way to failure and frustration, the demand for perfection. We've all seen people who demand an impossible standard of perfection from everyone connected with them. Their children must be exactly so, and the poor youngsters are pulled this way and that and moulded into a conformity with some wild standard their parents have. They have no life of their own. The only thing that matters is that they be exactly what the parents wish them to be. Or perhaps it is a wife who expects perfection of her husband. She is constantly ashamed of him and bitter because he is everything but perfect and is really nothing more than another man, with nothing more than the usual failings and defects of men. As far as she is concerned, he has to be the perfect husband, the ideal lover, the constantly attentive and devoted man, or her attitude is, "Heaven help you, you poor worm, if you fail to be perfect." Sometimes it's the husband who makes such demands. His wife has to be beautifully groomed at all times, even when she is doing the wash or scrubbing the woodwork. The children must always be neat and respectful, the house spotless, everything running by the clock, while he sits back and enjoys it all. There's one thing we can say about these persons who demand perfection. They are about as far from perfection themselves as a person can be. Such people are always complaining that their loved ones have let them down, without ever realizing that they themselves are responsible for their plight. Few people are more difficult to live with than they, and they fail to see their sickness. What disease of the soul is it that leads to this intolerant demand for perfection? It is the ancient hunger in the human heart for paradise, for the Garden of Eden, for a world of perfect circumstances and people. Adam and Eve could not return to that perfect world because their own sin barred them from it. The perfection of paradise stemmed from a total obedience to God, but the perfection which sin-filled man hungers for is a perfection in obedience to himself and in satisfaction of his own wishes. Let all the world be good, he reasons, and all my problems will be over. The person who demands perfection is constantly unhappy and yet always hoping that tomorrow the children, the employer, her husband, or his wife will suddenly become perfect and everything will be wonderful as a result. They pin their hopes of happiness on others and fail to see that they themselves are the only ones who can give themselves happiness. The true source of happiness is a peaceful and contented heart, and the surest way to quick frustration is to look for perfection in those around us. The Christian's happiness does not depend on a perfect world or a perfect family, but on a perfect God. We have this confidence that although we may be surrounded by overwhelming problems, unloving and ungrateful people, and undergoing very real trials, we are still in the hands of an almighty and loving God, and he doeth all things well. In him there is no shadow of turning, and his perfection is more clear than the light of 1,000,000 suns. We have this confidence that when we became his people in Christ, He loves us and surrounds us with His providential care. Then we can say with Paul, "If God be for us, who can be against us? He that spared not His own Son, but delivered Him up for us all, how shall He not with Him also freely give us all things?" Romans 8:31 and 32. And God says unto us, "I am the Lord thy God, open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it." Psalm 81:10. "If ye abide in me," says Jesus Christ, "and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you." John 15:7. "This is the victory which overcometh the world, even our faith, for our God is able, and we shall not want."